A great battle is underway, victory just a step away. But suddenly something strange happens. The soldiers stop, the commanders are left bewildered. The sound of swords fades, and the fate of the Caliphate is decided by a few. But who masterminded this deception? And who naively accepted it? Join us to discover how one wrong decision changed the course of history. I want to talk about the Battle of Siffin and the incident of the arbitration. Muawiyah brought around 70,000 soldiers to Siffin. But Imam Ali, peace be upon him, who was a master of military strategy, brought the battle to a point where the army of Muawiyah was on the verge of defeat. At the same time, many events took place during the battle. For example, some people stood in one corner and simply watched the fight. They said, "We are waiting to see who wrongs whom, so we can attack them." Others, because the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had said, "O Ammar, no one will kill you except the oppressive and unjust group," waited to see which side, the supporters of Ali or the supporters of Muawiyah, would kill Ammar. Then they would fight with that group. The oppression of Imam Ali, peace be upon him, was so great that people had to understand his righteousness from Ammar, who was one of his soldiers. The battle lasted a long time, and Muawiyah's army even cut off the water supply and caused turmoil. Imam Ali, peace be upon him, was on the brink of victory when Muawiyah ordered that women be brought behind the tents to make noise. In such prolonged wars, commanders would bring their wives and children with them. At the same time, Muawiyah ordered that the Quran be brought, and about 600 Qurans made from animal skin were gathered. These Qurans were mounted on spears, and they shouted, "We are Muslims." During this battle, Muawiyah's commander, Amr ibn al-As, in an attempt to save his life, stripped off his clothes in front of Imam Ali. Imam Ali, in his modesty, turned away and left. It is said that Amr ibn al-As was said to have 10 fathers. 10 men had committed adultery with his mother, and some of the face recognizers said he resembled Abu Sufyan. When they raised the Quran on the spears, Imam Ali's soldiers gathered around his tent, saying that they would not fight with the Quran. On the other side, the women in the enemy's tents were loudly wailing and crying, while Muawiyah's soldiers held the Quran on spears and shouted, "We are Muslims." Imam Ali, peace be upon him, was on the verge of victory, and Muawiyah would have been destroyed. The fate of existence would have changed. Yes, the killing of innocent people by ISIS, the killing of the people of Yemen by the Saudi-led coalition, all of it is the responsibility of those who stood against Imam Ali in Siffin. Imam Ali, peace be upon him, said, "We are victorious, and I am the rightful caliph. You have all pledged allegiance to me. Why did you obey everything that the previous caliphs said? Or when Khalid ibn al-Walid killed Malik ibn Nuwaira and assaulted his wife, you raised no objections. But when I speak, you defy me? I say defend your own security." But they said we must negotiate. This group, which later became known as the Khawarij, initially pressured Imam Ali to accept negotiations and arbitration. However, when the result of the arbitration turned out to be against them, they began to oppose Imam Ali, insulted him, and even plundered the public treasury. These actions threatened the security of the people. Imam Ali demonstrated great patience and endurance in the face of these difficulties. Reputable Sunni sources also emphasize his patience and forbearance. Imam Ali did not start the battle right away. He sent 12 men to say, "Ali does not want to fight you. Come and talk." However, the enemies shot so many arrows at Imam Ali's messengers that their bodies became like hedgehogs filled with arrows, and they fell off their horses. Eventually, Imam Ali, peace be upon him, was forced to allow someone to arbitrate between them. Results of the first round of negotiations was, firstly, the actions of Usman were not significant enough to justify his killing. Therefore, his death was considered an unjust act. Secondly, Muawiyah has the right to seek vengeance for him. Note that up until this point, Muawiyah had not been recognized as the caliph. One of the university professors, a German Orientalist, an Islamic scholar, says that the decision that Usman was killed unjustly was a political expediency, because Usman's unjust killing was not based on judicial investigation. Pay attention to this point, that the situation was such that all the companions were saying that the fate of Usman was deserved, as Usman had truly changed the approach, and the first and second caliphs would not have acted this way. They asked the second caliph why he didn't directly appoint Usman as the next caliph. He replied, "If Usman becomes caliph, he will impose the Umayyads on the people." And his prediction turned out to be exactly right. Uthman appointed people to positions of power, some of whom the Prophet had exiled because he considered them hypocrites and infidels. He appointed Walid ibn Uqba as a governor, someone who had drunk alcohol during Fajr prayers, and instead of performing 2 rak'ahs, prayed 4. Interestingly, when Uthman found out that the news of this incident had spread and people were protesting, he was forced to punish Walid. It was decided that someone should whip Walid, but no one dared to do it because everyone feared the consequences. However, Imam Ali, peace be upon him, came and took the whip. Therefore, in the first round of negotiations, it was decided that Uthman was killed unjustly, and Muawiyah still had the right to seek vengeance. The first round of negotiations turned out to be entirely in Muawiyah's favor. Interestingly, it is said that this decision was highly favorable to Amr ibn al-As, as it prevented neutral individuals from joining Imam Ali. Slowly, news of the first round of negotiations spread until the day arrived when arbitration was to take place. In this case, whatever was decided, both sides would accept. It was agreed that both Ali and Muawiyah were not caliphs for the time being, and that both had risen up against the state. Imam Ali had taken control in Iraq, and Muawiyah in Syria unlawfully. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, who was sent as the arbitrator on behalf of Imam Ali, was told, "Let Amr ibn al-As, the representative of Muawiyah, announce the outcome of your arbitration." He replied, "No, we are among the prominent Arabs, and Amr ibn al-As does not lie, and we reached this decision together." Abu Musa al-Ash'ari came and announced that both Ali and Muawiyah would be deposed. But Amr ibn al-As said that Ali should be deposed while Muawiyah would remain. Thus, based on the first round of negotiations, Muawiyah was allowed to seek vengeance for Uthman, and Uthman was considered unjustly killed. If today our Sunni brothers hold great respect for Uthman, it is the result of negotiations where, due to political considerations, it was declared that Uthman was unjustly killed, and this opinion was accepted as the religious view of Sunni Islam. In the second negotiation round, Muawiyah also emerged victorious because, for the first time, his name was mentioned with the title of Caliph. Muawiyah, who had managed to establish his caliphate in Syria, was now able, through convincing the religious leaders who had remained neutral in the dispute between Imam Ali and Muawiyah, to draw them to his side. Know that Imam Ali was opposed to this judgment and arbitration. Imam Ali, peace be upon him, said, "I was the commander, and now they are giving me orders." Imam Ali wrote letters to Muawiyah and responded to his letters, because he knew these correspondences would be recorded in history. Imam Ali said to Muawiyah, "You pledged allegiance to the previous caliphs, but now that I have become caliph, you refuse to pledge allegiance to me." The son of the first caliph, Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr, wrote to Muawiyah and said, "It seems you have forgotten who you are. This is Ali." Muawiyah responded, "Remember that the first one who took Ali's right was your father." Muhammad, the son of Abu Bakr, was someone Imam Ali had raised. He was an honorable man who was killed by the Umayyads. Although he was the brother of Aisha, there was no issue with him being killed, and because he was a supporter of Ali and a seeker of justice.